Hi everyone, Arnold here, santamuertemagic.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. The topic of today's video is offering altars to celebrate the dead. So this video will not focus directly on Santa Muerte, but we will remain in the realm of death and death devotion and death celebration. We will talk about Santa Muerte a little bit, but she will not be the focus of this video. As we enter the time of year associated with Dia de los Muertos celebrations or Day of the Dead celebrations in many Latin American and Spanish-speaking communities around the world, I thought it would be appropriate to discuss the idea of offering altars, or altares de ofrendas in Spanish, which I have already noticed starting to pop up where I am now in central Mexico. If you are not familiar with an offering altar, which can also be called an altar de muertos or altar of the dead, it is basically an altar that is created to coincide with Dia de los Muertos, to celebrate the memories or spirits of people who have passed away. It is common to see these altars sometimes as soon as late September, sometimes all the way into mid-November, but for sure I think they should be constructed by Dia de los Muertos, which is technically the 2nd of November. For starters, as many of my regular listeners and supporters will know, I am very liberal in my devotion to death, in my celebrations of death. I've never been a fan of following traditions just for the sake of following traditions. You should keep traditions alive if you want to, but I don't think we should feel compelled to do so. I think traditions come and traditions go, and that goes hand in hand with what Santa Muerte teaches us, which is that nothing lasts forever. There is always room for something new. So please do not interpret what I'm about to say as some kind of dogma. Take what works, leave what does not, and do not be afraid to make this time of year, to make this season of death your own. One thing I have noticed is that offering altars come in all sizes. They can be large and elaborate, taking up entire rooms or offices, or they can be tiny and discreet, existing in the corners of city apartments. It is common to see them as layered or like steps, with pictures at the top of the steps or at the top level, and various props and offerings on the lower steps or lower levels. Basically, the idea is to elevate the people to whom the offerings are being given. Even when an altar is built on a single flat table, the images of people being celebrated will often be propped up on a box or a small stack of books. Just like when someone has a birthday in the land of the living, we like to put all the attention on them. The idea is the same. We elevate the image of the person on an offering altar as a way of focusing the attention on the people we are celebrating. If you do not have a picture or image of the person being celebrated, perhaps that person lived and died in an era where photographs or portraits would not have been common, feel free to put something on the altar in place of an image, like an heirloom that the person once had, perhaps some letters that the person wrote, or just something that reminds you of them. If the person was a member of a certain tribe or community or industry, you might put something on the altar that represents that tribe or industry as a placeholder when an image is not available. A couple of notes on the people being celebrated. It is common and acceptable for a single altar to be dedicated to more than one person. On my mother's offering altar that she builds every year, she has pictures of her grandmother, her mother, her brothers, her uncles. She even puts out pictures of my father, who has passed away, which I think is nice because they got divorced when I was about 18 years old. But he still has a place on her altar of the dead. In fact, even his parents, so my mother's ex-in-laws, are also identified on the altar that she builds in her home. The point is, you do not need to build a separate altar for every spirit you want to celebrate. You can put everybody on a single altar, and that is very common. Also keep in mind that you do not need to have personally known a person to make an altar in their honor. I see altars all the time dedicated to famous people and important historical figures. If you travel around Mexico in October, I'm sure you will see plenty of altars dedicated to the artist Frida Kahlo, so feel free to make an altar to anyone you like, from your great-grandmother to Abraham Lincoln. Put them all on your altar. If they are someone you want to remember and celebrate, then put them on your altar. Now, how you choose to decorate your offering altar is up to you. I think the image or representation of the people being celebrated is really the only thing that is necessary to create something that could be classified as an altar of the dead. but in my experience living here in Mexico, there are several themes and elements that are very common. You can do with this information what you want. You can create your own quote-unquote traditional offering altar, or you may use this information to inspire a new tradition that is all your own. The choice is yours. So one common element of offering altars that I see today in Mexico are colorful paper flags. Usually these little flags are strung on a line of cord and then stretched across an altar or hung above an altar. These paper flags are made of thin tissue paper. I have heard once that these thin and fragile flags are to represent the fragile and fleeting nature of life itself, but I've also heard that the bright waving colors are to attract the attention of the dead. What is unique about these paper flags, which are made in a style called papel picado, literally cut paper or chopped paper, is that the designs on the flags are made by cutting into the paper. They are not painted or drawn on. Images are literally cut into the paper, and the patterns can be so intricate that from a distance, especially to the eye of a foreigner, they might resemble banners of colorful lace. Another common element of the offering altar in modern Mexico is the flor de cempasúchil, or cempasúchil flower. That word cempasúchil comes from an indigenous word that basically means many petals. So it is the flower of many petals. But it is also common to hear it called la flor de muerte, or the flower of the dead, because of its associations with Dia de los Muertos. And if you are from an English-speaking country, then you may hear it called marigold, specifically Mexican marigold or Aztec marigold. It is unique because the petals of the flower create this bright orange ball. I have heard it said that it is the scent of the flower which attracts the spirits of the dead to their respective altars, but I have also heard that the bright orange petals are used to guide the dead to the altars made for them. And something that many Mexicans do, something that my mother likes to do, is in addition to placing the flower on the altar itself, they will take the petals of the flower and sprinkle them on the footpath leading up to the home, sometimes even into the home and to the base of the altar. So this creates a bright orange or a bright gold path that essentially invites and guides the spirits into the home. Pan de muerto, bread of the dead, is another common element of an offering altar. If you Google an image of pan de muerto, you will see it often looks like a lumpy loaf of white bread covered in sugar. Those lumps that you see, I have heard, are said to make the bread look like a pile of bones. The bread itself is a basic bread recipe, so flour, eggs, butter, yeast. It is also usually covered in sugar. In addition to being consumed by the living during the month leading up to Dia de los Muertos, you will often see loaves of pan de muerto sitting on an offering altar, and that is intended to be food for the dead. Sugar skulls are also common, literally skulls created by blending sugar and egg whites. That blend is then pressed and molded into the shape of a skull. It is then air dried and usually painted with bright, colorful designs. Sometimes the name of a deceased person is scratched into the skull, and while these are technically candy, they are usually not eaten. They are usually purely for decoration. Burning candles on an offering altar is also very popular, believed to light the way for the spirits. Burning incense is also very popular. Copal is a popular choice, a scent that has been associated with the dead for generations, and which is also said to attract the dead. Religious iconography may or may not be on an offering altar, depending on who is building the altar or depending on the beliefs of the dead being celebrated. So if a person was a devout Catholic in life, their family might build an offering altar that features the Holy Cross or an image of the Virgin Mary. My mother's altar features images of Santa Muerte, even though the people honored on her altar may not have been devotees of Santa Muerte. My mother praises Santa Muerte, and since it is her altar in her home, she places the Santa Muerte upon it. Families that want to celebrate their indigenous roots might feature images of Mayan or Aztec deities. And if the altar is being made by someone or for someone completely secular, then you will find no religious imagery on the altar at all. Along with these common elements of an offering altar, it is common for people to place things on the altar which would be favored by the spirits who the altar was created for. An altar for a military veteran might include a display of military medals. An altar for a child might include toys and comic books. It is also common to place representations of vices enjoyed by the deceased on the altar, such as cigarettes, alcohol, bottles of Coca-Cola, pieces of candy, etc. Hopefully, in my explanation of the common elements of an offering altar, you've begun to see a few patterns emerge. Basically, when you build an offering altar, you are looking to attract the attention of the dead with bright colors, lights, pleasant aromas, and sweet flavors. If the dead had a favorite song or favorite type of music, you may even hear that music being played near the altar, or you may even see family and friends serenading the altar themselves with live music. When you build an offering altar, when you build an altar of the dead, you are building something that should not only remind you of the dead, but also which should attract and entertain the dead. And I think that really is the basic formula for an offering altar. Make it bright, make it sweet, make it fun, and you have the basic ingredients of an offering altar, of an altar of the dead. Now, you may not have everything available to make a quote-unquote traditional altar, but don't let that stop you. If they do not sell pan de muerto where you live, then visit the local donut shop for plain sugar donuts. If you cannot find Mexican marigolds, invest in some bright-colored daisies to line a path into your home. Finally, just to tie it back to Santa Muerte a little bit, the offering altar is usually something that is different from a Santa Muerte altar. A devotee of Santa Muerte during the season of death will commonly have their regular Santa Muerte altar in one area of the home, and the offering altar for the departed in a separate area. This being said, when space was an issue for me in the past, I did create a mini offering altar on the surface of what was technically my Santa Muerte altar, and that worked fine for me. It made me happy, and I'll probably do it again. But again, that was me, and I do not think this is common. In my experience, it is more common to have a Santa Muerte altar separate from an offering altar for the dead. Just like I will tell you to never let anyone else dictate how you make an altar to Santa Muerte, I will also tell you to never let anyone else dictate how you make an offering altar to honor the spirits of people you love and respect. Hopefully I've explained everything clearly. Hopefully, if you've never made an offering altar, I've inspired you to build one this year. But as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can do that through the contact form on the website, through the Patreon messenger system, or through the Discord chat server. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time. Bye.